Hi, guys, and welcome back to the Revelations of a Ranting Sheep. Today is my last
Back.
episode of the season. I cannot believe that it's May. It's been quite a journey, but I'll touch on that later on in the show. Um, on this episode, I've asked my friends, Libby Baeeloo, to come and help me to speak on the ways that we can rewire our minds for an optimal lifestyle. So that's what we'll be talking about today. Hopefully, you get some gems out of that. Libby is an artist, teacher, and motivator to the people, for the people. She's here for you. She's a yogi. Okay, you need to tune into her music. She's amazing. She has a great voice. Um, and how fitting to even have you here to talk about rewiring, because I think that that's something that we, on some level, are constantly talking about. How we need
All
to
the
just
time.
let
All
go
the
of the
time.
old and delete the old, erase it, do whatever it is you got to do, and fill yourself back up with positive talk that's going to enhance you in one way or another. So, welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm so happy to be here. This is exciting.
Yes. And we were talking about how she's drinking matcha tea. So I think I think that in itself, right? Because rewiring also has to do with the things that you are putting into your
Wow.
body, right?
We just,
So,
wow, great point.
so it is not just about the mind. I think it's about what you're putting in your body. And that's
Mhm.
something that
That's the
I
part.
recently, so last week, I had a terrible week energetically, and
Mhm.
in digesting everything that was happening and what I was feeling. Um, as I was thinking, the second thought that came into my mind was, but you also have not been following your diet,
Mm.
or not diet, because diet is momentary. You haven't been following the lifestyle that you said you want to follow. You out
Mm.
here eating these foods that you know you're not supposed to be eating. And so I already knew, like, I haven't been eating right. And so being in these situations where I'm dealing with high anxiety people, um, and you're dealing with when you're dealing with animal energies in your body, that is a thing. And I know people roll their eyes to that, and they don't want to hear it because they love their meat. They need that meat, girl. And it's,
Wait.
I get it, but also that is an energy, which is why in the Bible it tells you not to eat like brutally killed animals, because now you're getting that energy of fear, anxiety, or whatever it is that that animal is feeling. But anyways, it's a
Well,
thing.
I'm it's real because I mean, essentially, even yes, the things we eat, but that's why most of us can't under, understand it because we're not just fully conscious of the fact that everything has energy. Everything, everything that we do, every thought, every comment, every intake of food or whatever, it all has energy. And that that's like the constant reminder too. You have to kind of, because you get so caught up in the things that we normally do, the conversations we normally have, the food you normally eat. And a lot of these things, I think what I've come to realize is like you need both sides of things sometimes in order to come to full wisdom. We have to experience
No, I
those,
think so.
those moments when we have an upset stomach and then we're like, okay, this was good. We can do this every once in a while, but this is how I should be.
Yeah. And even that once in a while, I would say, I would submit that that once in a while should only be for people who are weaning themselves out of something, because you definitely don't want, like, once you already weaned yourself out of a thing, to be dabbling back into that, you're just playing with fire at that point. So just reserve, if you already out of something and you know you're good, stay away from that thing. That
I
goes
was,
for food, that goes for people. I spoke about my relationship with my brother and how I have weaned myself from negative people little by little, people who I felt weren't really bringing out the best out of me, and that the only person I had left in my life who was a little bit of strife was my mom, and she's not here anymore. And so there's no reason why, in my mind, I should be dealing with you, trying to help you, but you don't want to help yourself. It's just not good. And the fact that I saw myself being reeled into that energy again that I'm trying not to be a part of, at some point you have to create a boundary for yourself. Um, so it's not just, it's really weaning yourself out of everything. It's a broad thing. And I love that you said we don't really have an understanding um, of the energies, and that everything has an energy and everything is attached, because that is facts. I just started recognizing with my life experiences how attached we really are.
yeah, I'm gonna piggyback on what you were saying before that also and play a little in between.
Mhm.
But I fully actually hearing you say that, because hearing someone else's perspective on something helps you to expand yours. So like I definitely understand that strictness and that ability to like just, but some of us aren't there. And it's like it's this space of like coming, and I'm not saying that people should engage in, do your best to do your best. But essentially, it's one thing to be able to rid yourself of something. And then it's one thing to be able to engage with it with different energy and different intentions and different perspective, because nothing in my, some things are inherently bad, but there's only so many that I think, it's like a lot of the energy we have behind it and our intentions and how much or how little or, anything can kind of have that. So I think there are some people who are going to have that strict, be able to be, but most people are going to continue to challenge themselves because they're still learning like this, so I believe in a balance of that too, because I find myself, I have my teeter totter moments, and I try not to be so hard on myself in those moments because I'm a human trying to figure it out. So that's my 2 cents on that for
No,
sure.
we're all definitely figuring it out. And as you're talking, because we don't tend to, well, I try my best not to speak in an overall sense, just because I already talk too much. And to be talking in an overall sense is like, is a lot. I think I've made it pretty obvious this entire season that these are my opinions specific for the type of person that I am. And if it
Right,
speaks to you, then it speaks to you.
right.
I didn't really go into human design on this platform, even though I did touch on it when I had Kahawia as a guest. Um, but we did touch on the fact that we all have different wirings. And
Mhm.
so for me, because I'm not at a place where um, I'm strong enough to overcome people's negativity, but instead I fall into it. Um, for me, it is best to remove. But then you have other people who their light is shining bright enough to overcome your negativity. So I could be sustained in this situation because I know that I'm the strongest energy in the room. You know what I mean? And I think
Yeah,
that's what you're speaking to.
yeah, I mean, we're all meant to show up differently. So as long as we know how we're supposed to show up and we're doing that and we can share how we're showing up and if it works for another person or they can adapt to if it speaks, that's really the best we can do.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. It really is. So let's touch on, which we've kind of already been dancing around it, but let's touch on the state of mankind. We touch on health, but when I thought of this, when I thought of how I wanted to end the season, because I have a little bit of passion when it comes to health and wellness, but I'm not fully there. We could definitely still continue touching on it, but I want to touch on more so the mind, the state of humanity, the way we're thinking in our in our present day. And if you can kind of use personal examples to kind of guide the conversation, that would be super helpful.
Yeah.
So the things that we have to rewire. What do you see going on in our community these days that you're just like, man, this is hurting my heart. We need to fix this.
I think it's exactly what we're talking about, the power of the mind. I think, mankind is like mindkind, like the mind, and we talked about like ridding, your ways of thinking, your ways of feeling sometimes, knowing when to appropriately exhibit these things. I find that we first struggle with being honest with ourselves about the things we need to work on, that we came here to balance out. We project a lot of our pain onto other people. So I think, self-love, you have to acknowledge what's in there, what you come to think, and accept that. You have to, I think personally, what I've found as I've explored myself is that I have developed a pattern of thinking that is not it's not supportive, but I had to listen. I had to listen in. I had to listen in. You have to listen into yourself and explore, like, what is the conversations you're having with yourself? So I would think this lack of love for self is so apparent. And the pride would say we all love ourselves. We all will say that, it's
we always say that.
And not to say that there aren't people out there loving themselves, but it's a way of movement, I think, to a person that truly is in love with themselves fully, And I
What
think
do you mean a way of movement?
just as
Outward
I fall
action?
more in love with myself, there's just this God, a godly love for yourself to where you continue to like bask yourself into that, So I just imagine someone that is just like fully owning their authenticity, this side and that side, like fully like God made me this way and we working on it.
Yeah.
And so I imagine I'm sure I've seen people like that. I'm sure, but that's why I guess there's like, it just seemed like a person would move different.
Yeah.
Like,
no, that's the type of person who good and bad. Like, this is just what it is. And I'm not trying to hide behind my bad parts and just showcase my good parts. Like, this is what it is. And I could only hope that you have grace for me during my times of um, negative outward action.
That grace for ourselves, sis.
Yeah.
That's so, yes.
I think a lot of us, I don't want to call it grace. I don't think what we're doing is grace. I think what we're doing is just being like, it is what it is. And grace is a lot less nonchalant and more so intentional.
I guess for me, it's grace in the sense of like talking to myself. When I do things, that I'm not the best at, if that voice within me is speaking something, I push, like, giving myself grace in that moment is very helpful, because then I'm not mean to myself. I'm like, okay, stop.
Yeah, no, self-talk is super important.
So that's my number one. That's my first point.
Self-love, or the lack of self-love.
Lack of self-love.
So what's number two?
Number two, and the question again is why we are at the space we are at.
The what it is that you're seeing in correlation to even yourself, like the emotions that you're sensing, that you're seeing other people portraying in our society today. Because there's a lot going on that I don't want to say, because I don't know if you identify with that. So I want to know what you are identifying with.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I would say the lack of self-love, and then you get to choose who you are. You get to have a vision for who you are. You get to, you can explore that. So I think that would bring a lot more happiness to people if they were to be able to explore, their authenticity, their gifts, you see people that create their life. And when you're not in that, I guess you can maybe, a lot of us think we have an order to how we're supposed to be, how things are supposed to be done. So just being able to go after what you feel within that vision that you're given. I think everyone has some sort of vision within them. So just that, I think we would be much happier if we realize the gift of the ability to choose. And that would be number two.
So how do you, because okay, we know everybody has the capability, but some people are not able to tap into that. So we've spoken before about people, like some people are just have the inside wiring to be able to constantly point the mirror to themselves and say, you just did this, that was a very ugly thing, let's fix it, let's apologize, whatever it is, however it is that we choose to fix it, let's fix that thing. But then we have other people who not so much. Or is it that we all have that capability, but some of us are more capable to tapping into it? Or is it that some of us just don't have it and some of us do? Some of us require somebody else saying, hey, what you did was not okay. Because I remember having even situations like that with my mom where, I mean, this was towards the ending of her life though, where I recognized what was happening. And I'm like, how you spoke to that person just now on the phone was super unacceptable. You need to call them back whenever you're ready and apologize for that thing, because that was not okay.
I think maybe some people I think we all have both within us.
Okay.
Because sometimes you do, because there's be too self-aware, right? I mean, I don't want to say too self-aware, but
is that a thing?
I think it depends on how you're projecting it within, right? If you're analyzing and finding awareness and it is positive and solution based and not like dig, critical.
I see. Mm-hmm.
But there is ways that you can be too, because I would say that I've always been aware of my actions, but I was aware of my actions, but I took so much responsibility that I didn't really it was like more in a weighing thing. It wasn't, I think, healthy. Like it was like, I would allow that to weigh me down in the sense of like, I've got to do better. I've got to, so I think awareness is great. Awareness is great, but how we dissect that probably could have a balanced space. And then I would say also the ability to be self-concerned, because I feel like some people are just more self-concerned. Some people are other people more concerned. And finding that balance, between being able to, just, so I think some people are just more on one end, like you said, and finding that balance of taking another into consideration. But sometimes you got to take yourself into consideration. And some people, I know for me right now, I'm trying to find the balance between those two of like, I'm aware, but okay, let me let this person be aware too. Let me be honest. Let me, So I think it's a balance between the two, but I think maybe we're all just a little bit either over here or over there. And some people are really good at both.
So you think we all have it. We all have the capability to be self-aware.
I think so. I think it's in there somewhere. Somewhere deep down for some people.
I'm not sure if I have an opinion on that, just because my entire journey, and even here, like the entire journey up to this point, everything that I have become has been because I keep meeting people who are showing to me that they don't have the understanding of their actions. Some, I will say, some do like to play as if they are not understanding what they're doing, when in reality they are. And it takes a boldness and the right words to say, to call them out on it. Because I've done that as well. And I actually love doing it. I love saying certain things to make them aware that I'm aware that they're aware. And the way it shows up on their face, like, why are you in my mind? Because sometimes the way I would do it would be, I'm going to tell you what you're doing, but I'm also going to insert your next thought. And so I'm able to tell them, like, I know that you're thinking this. I know that you want to say this. And that's the part that gets them. And it's always a guy. It's always a guy. Because I can't get in there with a woman. Like, I'm not that interested to know a woman's next move. I'm a little bit more trusting towards women, or it just doesn't affect me, like, in my mind. But if I'm like dealing with a guy, like, because we live in this world that all of a sudden, and that's one of the things I see. One of the things I see is that all of a sudden, it's not okay to be friends.
That's so true. But I feel like our generation, I mean, I see it with my parents. My parents have friends. They live a grand old life. But I feel like our generation is so, I mean, not to make it a generational thing, it's my personal opinion, but I just feel we're so, I don't know if it's because we're so physically like, it takes a level of friendship to be in a relationship. And because, I don't think relationships are necessarily promoted too much in this society. We just have a very surfaced approach to our relationships at times, in different ways.
It's so surface that sometimes it don't even be on the surface. It be above in the sky somewhere. We just be in la la land dealing with folks. But I love that you mentioned that your parents have like their relationships and stuff outside of the marriage, because I was just having a conversation about this last night where I was saying because I wasn't born in North America, I was able to see not only that, but because I grew up in a small city, I was able to see married couples, have great friendships with the opposite sex, and even like a woman will be great friends with the wife, and I was able to see that. So growing up, when I coming to live in New York and dealing with situations where girls had an issue with me because I was friends. I don't want to say friendly because I feel like friendly is defined in a different way, but I was friends with this person, like I'm cool with this person. Maybe they're my classmate or whatever. We have a good time joking around and whatnot. And they would just look at me like I was trying it. And I'm just like, I don't want your man. I don't want your man. And the person I was talking with, they were saying, it's interesting you said that, because I'm thinking to myself, and I didn't see that growing up. I saw married couples, specifically the woman, always side-eyeing any female friend that the man would have. So it's interesting because that person grew up here in America, just like you. And so I just love that you have a similar perspective that I have.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a part of a lot of, it's at the root of humans. I think that's the natural, like, well, I don't want to say natural. At the root of, just our human experience, it is about that togetherness, that connection. And, depending on, the family that you're raised in and the environment, culture, uh, you experience that. And I think, growing up, although I witnessed it, learning to be friends, like if you're it depends on, like, how should I say it? Like, I think our parents how they were raised maybe influenced like that generation, to see other, people in a certain light. And then I think as things, change, not consciously, you just witness different things. And that can inhibit, even the relationship with women or the relationship with men naturally. It does take a level of, because I am just now really understanding, I understood it when I was younger. I had plenty of guy friendships, but now that I'm older and I have some maturity within myself and just learning about myself and the relationship with other people, I'm learning to have these relationships with guys and have a friendship, learning to genuinely. So I think, like, we're gonna have that type of, hopefully our kids witness that stuff because we're like that,
For sure.
But I think it changes as we change, right? As people.
It's learning to, we're in a specific, so we're in the millennial category, but I think specifically, and I could be wrong, just whoever, whatever demographics watch this video, but I truly, truly believe that the babies that were born in 89 specifically have a very, we're like right there in the border of the old school and the new school.
That's true.
More so than somebody who was born in 88 or somebody who was born in the 90s. I really do feel that way. Like, that's what I perceive as I talk to other people and whatnot. Is like, we have this, it's like we were the borderline of like new and old, and we struggle with that,
That's so
because
true.
I think some of us lean more towards the new, and then you have some who lean towards more the old, and then you have the people who are struggling because they don't really know themselves. Like, it took me a while to finally realize, like, you know what? I want to take care of my home. I want to decorate my house. Like, I want to take care of my man. Like, when he come home, I want to say, hey babe, like, I have dinner ready. Like, I want to do those things. Those that's what, and that's not necessarily, I won't say that that's what I didn't see my mom with a guy. Like, I didn't see her doing that. My mom was a single mom. But it makes me feel good doing that. And I know that there's other women who are like, yeah, I'm good. Like, he could go get his own food out the pot. And that's amazing. Maybe you have something else that you provide that will make you feel fulfilled in your relationship. So it's not about saying that one way is right and the other way. I don't really subscribe to that. I subscribe to whatever works in your relationship is what works in your relationship. And so, but it took me being in, I was gonna say something else. It took me being in these relationships to recognize that, oh, I actually really do enjoy doing this for the right man, right?
Mhm.
Because just like I enjoy doing those things, I could also possibly become resentful doing it for somebody who is not caring for me in a way that I want to be cared for.
Yeah, that's so true. I think, like you said, it's just it depends on the person. Because I'm finding, whether it be for the man we're in a relationship with, or friends, or family, like you said, I'm finding that I actually do enjoy the nurturing aspects of certain things, and presenting this and doing it this way. And, you know, through some self-discovery, it's like, okay, I do want to
I
do this.
agree.
So,
Even with you, I'll be cooking for you.
I have so many
So,
people who love to nurture
so
me. Maybe
I
that's
love
why
taking care.
I have great people in my life who love to do that. I'm thankful. I'm learning. I'm realizing I'm now going to make space for me to do it, but I'm usually getting showered with so much love.
Yeah, like it's really about embracing yourself. I think I've spoken about this over and over and over, and I will continue speaking about it, because what you put in what you put in through your eyes and through your ears, um, and in other ways, but specifically through your minds, through your mind, and through your eyes, excuse me, and through your ears, is really important. If we're constantly subjecting ourselves to seeing things that are not life producing, then all of a sudden we think that this is the way of life and this is how I should be. Oh, I should be about my job. And it's like, well, yes, you should be about your career if that's how you're wired. But if you are intentionally constantly hearing these, watching and hearing and listening to people who constantly talk that way, and you feel unfulfilled because you're like, you have a great career. I know some women who have great careers, or I've known some women who had great careers who all of a sudden felt unfulfilled. And I'm just looking at them like, girl, what else do you want? Like, this is what you said you wanted. But it's because that's not really what they want. It's just that they've been constantly bombarded with these messages. And so they believe that that's really what they want. And then they realize, like, I actually want to be a stay-at-home mom. I don't want to do this. I want to be taken care of, and I want to be able to take care of my family. But some of us feel shamed when we go back to what we considered being old school. Oh, this ain't the 1970s. This ain't the 1920s. Like, how many times do we hear that?
Yeah.
Just it's like,
I
go
think that's
ahead.
back to reprogramming the mind, which is one, you have to reprogram, you got to get to know yourself. And you have to get to know yourself. You have to figure out what it is that you want. And once you figure it out what it is that you want, you have to work through caring about what other people think and let go. That's also attached to that reprogramming of the mind, and do what it is that you feel led to. And that's hard.
That is hard. So
But
let's touch on that. Let's touch on that. So how do we rewire whatever it is that you are personally dealing with? I suggest that first of all, you really have a good one-on-one with yourself. And as Libby mentioned, really recognize the conversations that you're having with yourself and the conversations that you're having with other people, the emotions that you're having behind those conversations, so that you could recognize, okay, these are my, for the lack of better word, these are my demons that I'm dealing with. So once you recognize that, what are the steps to start rewiring? Because as you mentioned, it is extremely hard.
well, let's just put it out there that this, for me, I'm still working on. It's a constant.
Amazing.
I feel like it's a constant. I personally feel like it'll be a lifetime of exploration and mountains to climb and bridges to walk over. But I feel like this is the number, I think it's how we think is so important. And so I would say it first starts with talking to yourself nice. Everybody talks about affirmations. I personally feel super silly doing them. It doesn't feel good. But I've heard that it doesn't feel good because you're not used to talking to yourself like this. So just those affirmations, hitting them whenever you get caught up in some type of deep, uncomfortable thought, acknowledge it. Journal. This is why journaling is good. Write it out. There might be something that you can explore from that thought. It's not this concept of rejecting, because that's almost rejecting a part of yourself to some extent. So it's not really about the rejection, but it's about, I don't need to think about this. But if this comes up, okay, let it come up. I heard once, it's kind of like when you see a plane flying across the sky, you see it, but before you know it, you don't see it anymore. And that's kind of like how we should treat our thoughts. Like, if we don't sit there and try to hop on the plane and go with it to wherever it's going and just let it pass by, then you might learn. So I would say definitely the affirmations are going to be number one. I would say, because I think they're the quickest way to bring some positivity in your life, like, okay, I am beautiful, I am awesome, and again, just bringing those up anytime that you go to a place, I would say, of definitely an unconscious thought where you're just thinking about something, you don't even know why you're like, oh, okay, so I would say definitely affirmations first, and, finding something, sorry. Oh.
No, go ahead, finding something.
Number two, I would say, I want to go with the things that most people have access to immediately, I think. Number two, I would say doing something you enjoy, if it's walking, if it's, art or listening to music or taking a bath or cooking, whatever it is, something that just doesn't make you think too much and feels good, in a way of like, nourishment, uplift. I would say, spending a little bit of time every day doing that thing.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a walk, go for a walk when you get off of work. So finding something that you could, like a hobby or a habit that you can implement into your life that gives you that sense of peace.
Yeah, I wanted to go back and touch on affirmations because you're absolutely correct. Like, I also thought it was silly, not because I and not silly in a general standpoint, but silly for me.
Right.
Like, I don't want anyone to feel like,
Right.
I for me, it just felt like I just didn't understand it. But I just 2 weeks ago in one of my live sessions, um, we were talking. I was being coached by my fellow advocates, and um, they were telling me about affirmations. And in that moment, it's like so many things were going through my mind, and I'm just like, why am I so against affirmations for myself when in reality it took some sort of affirming myself in order to get to where I am right now. It wasn't necessarily affirmations as how we know it to be, like, you're pretty, you're smart, you're strong, you're this, you're that, but more so full sentences of, hey, I recognize that you've been in a negative part of life for a while. We can't continue being this way. We have to do better. And so you're talking to yourself, telling yourself that you have to do better. And I think number 2 was perfect. In doing better, for some people, it requires, for me, it's walking. It requires having alone time to shake yourself off from other people's energy. It's absolutely required. Walk, run, exercise, do a bath, whatever it is, it has to be done with just you. You
That's a great
cannot
point.
you cannot rewire and get rid of a negative thoughts or self-talk if you are around somebody else who you know for a fact does not do the same for themselves. You have to really turn your life around and start. I used to in one season, I used to go to bed listening to like an affirming video on YouTube, because what happens is when we are awake, we're constantly um our conscious mind is what's in the forefront. um we're not aware of the unconscious, but it's still active in a passive way. So even seeing, I don't know, seeing something that's negative, maybe in your mind, you're like, in your conscious mind, you're like, I'm not even gonna look over there. I'm not gonna give my energy to that. But the reality is your ears are working. So that is going into your unconscious mind.
I was listening to it's called The Art of Communication by I don't want to mess up his name, but Tich Nhat Hanh. He just recently passed away. But he was saying when you are in those environments where you can't control the conversation and you're just around a certain type of energy, to extend compassion. And I really liked that because it's like, there we go. Like, because even in witnessing that, you can become a judge, right? You're like, so compassion is just like, okay. And like you said, doing your best to not necessarily be around those things. But when you can't, I don't want to say can't, when you're, when you're unable to, I guess Tim would do it, when you're unable to leave that situation, that sense of compassion is important.
So I'm talking more so from a New York type of living, right? Where the transportation, a lot of people take public transportation and stuff. And sometimes, even though you can definitely choose to remove yourself and go to a different car, whatever, the thing is that we are human beings who absorb not just words, actions, we are also absorbing people's energy.
Oh yeah, no doubt, no doubt. So that's what I mean. Regardless, that energy of compassion, I feel like it's like a repellent.
Yes, but it's hard to
It's definitely hard. It's
it's
hard.
hard to live in that place, right? It's hard to live in that place. Like even now, like I travel with music just because I have my own situation with time. So I travel with headphones on. Um, but that does not mean that how do I explain it? I have my own, but that was like years ago from this guy, something Perry. I can't remember his name. Um, he would talk about like the things that you think you're not perceiving are still being absorbed into your unconscious mind. And anyways, my point is that to tap into, I don't know if this is something that I heard or something that I eventually came to the conclusion of, um, but in order to purge that your unconscious mind, you can only do it while you're sleeping. And since that's difficult to do because you are sleeping, so you can't put forth an action. The only way to do it is to tap into that with a recording. So before you go to bed, you put on something and make sure, I always say this, they never stated this in any of the videos that I watched. But again, it was very important for me to get out of that negativity that I was in when I was younger. Um, please make sure that you listen to that video, whatever tape it is that you want to choose to listen to at night. Please make sure that while you're awake, give yourself the time to listen to the entire video so that you know what it is that you're listening to. Because you certainly do not want to subject yourself to something at night. Just scroll through YouTube, be like, oh, that sounds like it's a good video. Let me press play. And you press play, and obviously you're going to listen to it for maybe 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how long it takes you to fall asleep. And then all of a sudden, the video turns into something else. You don't want that. Okay, you don't want like whatever is on. So you just want to make sure that the video is clean and pure and all the good things that you need in order, and it works. The point is that it works, like um in a way that you won't even be aware of until you are in a situation that would typically um render a negative reaction, and you are like at peace all of a sudden, and you're like, oh, look at me, what is happening? And it's like that reprogramming that you're doing at night really really helps. It really really helps. We have to embrace the passive we have to embrace passive results. I think that's another thing that is happening in our generation, not in our season of life, that we have to see the results happen now. We have to see it very tangible. We have to feel it. We have to celebrate it to the fullest. And it's like not every result is going to be a big boom. Some results are small. Like, and I have a real issue with, and I don't know if this is, I think it's fitting. I think the fact that we love this big boom of results um, has caused me to, maybe I have like a list of 5 things to do, and I'm trying to do all 5 things on that list at one time. But what ends up happening is I'm doing 5 things at one time, or at least trying to do 5 things at one time. And at the end of the day, I haven't got a result on none of them. I wasn't able to finish none of them because I'm doing too much instead of just focusing on one thing, finishing that one thing, doing the other thing. And maybe it's going to take you 2 days. Maybe it's going to take you 3 days. But the fact is that at least you're doing one thing at the time and not stressing yourself out. Because I know I stress myself out. I will go mad trying to do all these things at once. And it's like, why are you trying to do this? but it's
Yeah.
my own programming that I have to rewire.
And I think, that's so true. I was talking to someone yesterday about just the ability, because that's what I guess my next one would be yoga and meditation, uh, or essentially, and when I say yoga, yes, the activity that most of us are aware of, the different postures and breath work. But I also would just include, when a person is fully involved in what they're doing, of just like, a basketball player at the free throw line about to shoot that shot, just being fully one with your breath, your focus, and your body. So being active in something like that, or practicing meditation, really focusing on the breath, sitting still, that being able to tune in to whatever it is you're tuning in to helps us just in life to be able to tune in, like you said, when you do take that moment and you're like, okay, I need to, it helps us to realize that there's always going to be distractions, but the ability to go in, to focus in on whether it be a task, being at one in that moment, or when you're doing uh, yeah, basically that correlates on into life. So that's definitely would be my next steps. Help me. These are all things that have helped me. Yeah, I would say that would be just slowing down and being able to, because the only way that you can change how you think is that you're slow enough to realize that it was a choice. And that's takes a lot.
It does require.
To realize it's a habit, like I gotta slow this down, so.
I agree. It definitely requires slowing down your pace in every sense of the word. I'm not even gonna go through the list, but in every sense of the word, you have to slow your pace down. So even, I think there was I can't remember who it was. It was just a random video that popped up, and the person was saying, if it requires you to answer someone 2 days from the day that they asked you that question, do that. And if it's something that that requires an immediate answer, and you just don't feel good in your spirit to give that answer, then just say, I'm sorry, but I can't answer you.
And that requires slowing down, even to tap into that feeling, right? Because I definitely know myself being such a, it's, I think we're both very high energy people in that sense of like, so when you're in that energy, for me, I'm beginning to realize I've learned a few lessons of just, you need to slow down, take that breath, take a few moments to let that question or action kind of bounce off, like you said, and then approach the situation. So sometimes when you are in those moments, you can become over. And I guess that's when, again, I think breath work, I need to be more conscious of using it in smaller moments, but breath work or affirmations or maybe a quick conversation with yourself, like, or whatever it takes.
Whatever it
that
takes.
Walk, like you said, that walk, it's just like, okay.
Run, exercise, a bath, go bird watching. I mean, low-key, I like the word bird watching is even strange to me, but like I be bird watching. I don't know why I don't call myself a bird watcher. I love watching the birds in my backyard just do their thing, like I just love the steps that I've been taking to embrace nature more, because the more you embrace nature, the more you're able to tap into the energy of us all being connected, that we're all been connected to, and will continue to be connected to it, whether you believe in it or not, whether you see it or not, whatever it is. We have to understand that just because you don't believe it don't mean that it ain't real. And I'm gonna leave that at that.
That's great. I mean, look at the things you believe that ain't real. Like I just love that word. Ever since that word compassion is that'll slap you out at any moment of like, you know, just like, wake up. Just
Mhm.
have a, you know, and sometimes compassion is having that conversation, that hard conversation. And the next one would be from the Four Agreements. That's my book, Don Miguel Ruiz, I believe. But one of the agreements is don't take anything personal. That's hard. Getting out of that victim, like that, not to say our feelings aren't valid.
They are.
You know, our feelings are very valid, but the attachment to whatever transpired is not necessary for our expansion and growth. It actually weighs us down to get to attach, or you can definitely acknowledge when someone's crossing a boundary or whatever, but how you take that on is very important, or how you don't take it on. More
Yeah,
so.
not taking it personal.
That's hard. It's hard. This stuff is
It's
hard
very
to talk
hard.
about, guys.
It's very hard, but I think, like we mentioned, it is hardest only when we are not slowing down. I used to
Wow,
live.
that's great. That's great.
I used to live in a place of, or I should say rather, I didn't know how to be in the moment. And being in the moment was something that I constantly used to hear a lot. Not that people were telling me that I need to be in the moment, but just I would hear it in conversations a lot, like being in the moment, being in the moment. I used to tell myself, like, you need to be in the moment. I just didn't know what that looked like. Cause in my mind, I'm like, I am in the moment. Like, I'm right here. Like, what you mean? Right. But I think that statement is about slowing down, is about enjoying the person across from you or the people across from you, opening your senses. What do they smell like? What is it when I say this word? How do they flinch? What is it that they feel like? How tall are they? What are they wearing? Do they look really pleasing aesthetically to you? Was that thing that they said funny? Laugh at that. How can you connect to that story that they just told you? Do you have something that could connect you to them? How can you slow down and connect with the with your scenario in that moment, instead of, well, in our generation, instead of taking out your phone and taking pictures and stuff?
Yeah,
There's studies that show that they like tested how many people, I don't know, and they tested them on how well can the group who took the pictures remember the actual situation versus the people who did not take the pictures. And it's the people who were not out taking pictures that remembered the moments better. And I know that for a fact, because sometimes I be looking at pictures and I'm like, didn't I remember that? It's like, yesterday I'm heading home and there's this dude who was drunk. He was drinking, honey. He had a radio in his hand, a older man at that, which kind of shocked me, because to me that shows that there's something that's happening. It doesn't necessarily have to be that that person has currently gone through something. It could also just be that he has hit his plateau when it comes to negativity, and now he is outwardly trying to release that thing. And so he's drunk, he has music in his hand. I'm really shocked that it was an older guy. And he's dancing and he's just having a good time. And of course, naturally, this is the bus station, so everybody's looking. And I'm just looking and I'm laughing. I can't really hear what he's playing because I have music in my headphones. But I'm just like, man, good for him. Like, if we could all just, even not be drunk, but if we could all just embrace happiness, joy in that way, without us being pushed to the edge of the cliff, that would be amazing. And as I am turning, as I'm talking positively to myself about joy and happiness and being positive and hoping this thing for mankind, I see people, this one woman immediately takes out her phone and starts recording him. And I'm just like, for what? For what? How about dancing with him? How about taking that time and saying, I'm going to dance with him? You taking out your phone, you taking a picture. Why? For what? Because you're now going to send it to other people. Maybe you're going to post it on social media and you're going to talk about what? Listen, I will put everything that I own to say that under that remark is not going to be what it is that I was saying earlier. If we could just embrace life in this way, it's gonna be like, look at this junk food out here making a fool out of himself. Look how old he is. He needs to be home. You know what I mean? And it's like, for what? Why are we doing that?
I guess that's they take it. That person took it personal.
He didn't mind. He was having a great time, and
right. That's what I'm like.
It brought me joy. It brought me joy because we really do need to
relax a little.
Relax a little.
Have fun, be childlike. Because he was, like you said, regardless of whether he was drinking or not, he was exhibiting joy. He was engaged with himself and the moment and feeling that music and just being authentic, man, and that's so great.
We would never, because we hate the feeling of being judged. Some of us don't allow ourselves to be in that moment. And it's like, your joy is helping you be even more joyful. That person is going to continue being that way. So you rather not do this thing to make yourself more balanced.
Because I think they just don't know how. I mean, I think if you're able to still tap into that, if you're still exhibiting that, that took a lot of, it's hard to remain childlike and to feel
it is hard.
Comfortable and it's hard. Most of us, and like you said, and the only thing we can probably do is to exhibit it more so other people might feel a little more comfortable to do it too. Before you know it, you might have the whole street dancing.
And how amazing would that be?
I hope I'm there.
That would be so great. It's like the only time we feel comfortable embracing that type of energy is in situations where we probably shouldn't, like carnival, like Mardi Gras, right? Stuff like, it's like,
well, look, girl, I'm gonna always be doing Mardi Gras,
and we want to the body, we want to express this part of us so bad. That's why we create these type of situations, because we feel like we just need to dance, we just need to celebrate, we just need to do these things, but we need to do it in the confinement of this one day or these few days.
And I take dance lessons.
Do you?
I do. Yes. Well, I started it for stage presence. But
okay, I see. I'm like,
but I you said what?
I thought you were talking about something else.
Oh, but I mean, it gets you. I am enjoying getting in touch with my body and just with movement and the freedom of dancing. So we all need to do it more. And the more that I engage with it, the more I find myself dancing on a daily basis,
Children are so important. Children are so important. Like, my mind is about to go somewhere else. I don't want to touch on that. But I think that we all have the understanding, whether positive or negative, how important the energy of children is. It is the pure, is pure energy. It's energy that we need to be embracing. We need to
be exhibiting. I mean, children are important, but also important is childlike adults who haven't forgotten whom they are, so they can help to lead the children into that existence, you know,
in a very responsible, mature, and intentional way.
yeah,
Because
of course, you want to, and that's already there. We got that part.
mhm.
Let's
What
get
part?
into you know, a lot of us we know how to teach them you know, but like teach them that it's okay to mess up, you know, teach them that it's okay to not be perfect, you know, we're embrace that child. We have to enjoy that childlike nature, but we have to continue to encourage it so that
Yeah.
when they're adults, they have that maturity and that responsibility, but they also have that freedom to be.
No, absolutely, I agree. Definitely teaching your child that it's okay to mess up rather than going down their throat because they didn't get something right that you feel they should be getting right. Like we really have to check ourselves, but
Because
that requires
that's like you said, another topic, but I it saddens me when people say children are bad or this, that, or the other. And I'm like, you know, I mean, maybe these things are to be true, but there's more to it.
there's always more to it. There's always more to it. And if you just allow them to talk and express themselves, and even if they're coming across um what you may perceive as disrespectful, recognize, stop, slow yourself down in that moment and think, where did they see somebody exhibiting that type of behavior? And when you are able to be honest with yourself, then you can say, okay, let me teach them how to speak. Let me teach them what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. And if you're even more mature, you can allow your child to hold you accountable for your actions.
Now that's tough, but it's good. But this goes back to the topic at hand: how to encourage us to reprogram our mind. Going back to that child in you that wasn't bogged down by all this gunk, you know, and going back to figuring that part of yourself out, and then also back to, like you said, how, you know, we encourage one another in our communities, whether it be the parents and, you know, the different examples we show. uh you know, leading by example is a great way to reprogram the mind. The things that you want to see yourself as and project yourself as,
That's
projecting,
correct.
really working on, you know, a lot of times I find myself saying, oh, people see me this way or people see me that way. Okay, well, how do you want to be seen? Let's focus on that and let's cultivate that.
How do you want to be seen? How do you want to be perceived? And,
Yeah.
and, and, and also know that you can absolutely walk in that truth of how you want to be seen by people, but you're going to still have people who don't see you that way.
And that's
And
fine.
recognize that that's them.
Don't take it
Don't
personal.
take it personally. Don't take it personally. Um, as you know, I'm uh, in the process of getting certified as a coach. And even before that, I always ask people who are trying to figure out their life purpose, what is it that you enjoy doing as a child? Like what is it that you remember that you really loved to do?
Mhm.
And more times than not, I always hear, I don't know. I don't know. And that it is literally like somebody is like throwing a dart at me or something. It breaks me every time they say they don't know because I'm just like, oh my gosh, like it's overwhelming that those thoughts to some extent have been suppressed. I don't want to say they disappeared because they have not disappeared. They're right there. But they have been so suppressed by life that you can't even slow down and think like, oh, well, I really enjoyed, um, I live close to a garden, and I really enjoyed going to that garden and helping Miss Samantha, with whatever that she was doing. Or there was somebody who had a dog, and I think, and I'm making it very simple like this because it's those simple things that we don't recognize, like, oh, be um maybe I should work in agriculture because I really enjoyed helping Miss Samantha. Or, oh, I used to love helping Mr. So and so with his dog. Maybe I should be a vet. We don't tap into those things. We just think like, oh, I just used to love this, like, oh, it's whatever. Because that's what I did with myself when I was trying to uh, target what it is that I loved doing as a child. And I was completely throwing my child activity to the side, which was I used to love helping my next door neighbors set up uh, for Christmas and stuff, even though my mom never allowed, we didn't celebrate any of those things. But she would absolutely allow me to go across the hall and help my neighbors decorate their Christmas tree or their door or whatever. If somebody, when my mom used, what she did do was paint the house every season and every Christmas season. And I used to love to want to help her, even though she never allowed me to. I used to love to help her paint or want to wash the dishes or do whatever chores that is that she was doing around the house. I used to love doing that. But because I wasn't taught to recognize those things as the foundation to what it is I'm supposed to be doing in life, I was just like, yeah, I just used to do, like, that's not really it. We are taught that if you wasn't a good singer, if you weren't playing, you didn't have like a doctor's coat or something like that, or you didn't have a briefcase. You know what I mean? You understand what I'm trying to say? Like, we just throw to the side these simple things. Maybe you used to love um, flying kites, like you were really good at putting kites together and doing, maybe you should work doing something like that. What do you call that? What would you call that?
Uh,
Carpentry? I don't know.
yes.
Putting things together, like building things, like
Engineering, I guess.
engineering, like, you know what I mean? Like we really, and I started off, this is fitting. I started off this season talking about that, talking about how we really need to, as parents, even though I'm not a parent yet, we really need to embrace recognizing whatever it is that our children are doing and being able to translate it into life.
I guess
Because
it
go
goes
ahead.
back to, we don't encourage authenticity. We don't encourage it in ourselves. We're constantly fitting into a box, constantly doing something some way. So we're not going to encourage that in our children because it's more, it's easier to fit in. It's easier to, do what everyone else is doing. So if our child is not doing something that we deem as that particular parent as good, whatever, then we won't promote that. Let go of the judgment and be yourself.
Um,
Yeah. Because authenticity is so important to reprogram your mind.
yes. How, as we wrap it up, one good way to maintain, once you get your list and recognize your demons and decide what feels best for you in order to be more in tune with yourself in order to change those things. Now, once you have already started walking your walk and you're living life and things start to feel great, what is one great thing to continue, one great advice to maintain? So you're already doing it. but now you want to maintain.
Visualization. So whatever it is, yeah, that would be, okay, there we go. Okay. That is what I am finding is helping a lot to stay in tune with the different goals that I've set for myself, whether it be thinking patterns, whether it be how I want to talk, actual goals in life towards career, is just having that vision to replace any moment of just negativity or fear or just, whatever, a feeling or an emotion or that I want to like move out of. Keeping my vision, like visualizing myself as I want to be seen, as I see myself. That I think is a great way, no matter what moment you're in, that you can do anywhere you're at. You could be at work and, whatever that job may be. And maybe you get a little frustrated because you're doing that job, or you get frustrated because someone says to you. Coming back to your vision helps a lot.
That's Bible. Writing
Yes.
down the vision and making it plain so that even when you're running, you could read it as you're running.
Yeah.
We don't want to run, but if we do have to, at least you know what it is that you're running towards.
Amen. That's right there.
I think that's amazing.
And that's what's been
very
helping
good.
me definitely, because it's so easy for me to see something else, and maybe that's for a lot of people, but I can definitely use that emotional energy and be visualizing all kinds of things. So being conscious of, okay, this is what I want to see. This is what I want. Let me think about this. Let me see it. Let me feel it. And eventually I moved kind of out of that place that I probably was in,
I will add, because I think to a certain extent, to a greater extent, I have written down my vision, and it's right there to the side of me. But if I may add, for those who may identify a bit more with me, take some time out. If you wake up, listen to me. When you wake up every morning, take 5 minutes and go read that vision before you go to bed. Read that vision, because what I have noticed is that, yes, I've written it down, but I don't really read it on a daily basis. And that's not acceptable. Even if I know what it is, which I know what it is, but sometimes you just need that clarity. You need those words to be the first thing that you see and the last thing that you see. You really want to be intentional with yourself and with everything that you're doing. So I think that's an excellent tip in on how to maintain your rewiring.
For sure. Definitely. Before you go to, whatever you do right before you go to sleep, you dream about, they say. So right before you go to sleep, when you wake up, and then when you're going through the day, see it in your head. That's keeps you in touch. All of that keeps you in touch with your imagination, with faith. And, actually heard something which I like, was said persistence or consistent. I always mix those words up, but persistence or consistency is essentially equal to faith, because you believe that if you keep X, Y, and Z, that X, Y, and Z will happen. So I was like, oh, wow, that's a great way to explain it as well. But this has been great, because and talking to people about these things, right? Because this is a great, having this conversation with you is reminding me of things I need to do and that I have set out to do. And so, I think, that's a great way too, is having people around that you can talk about these types of things with.
Exactly. Having an accountability, and sometimes maybe you don't want an accountability, um, but I honestly don't see how success in a world where you're constantly dealing with people, how you can have a full success without having people around you who are encouraging you or even giving you the platform to to um, vent or be a soundboard, right? And I know that's a word that we use a lot that I don't know if a lot of people have an understanding, but if you were to put yourself in a room with four walls, um, it's about saying the thing and hearing the echo come back to you. So that's essentially what you're doing with your soundboard. You're allowing yourself to speak the words and that person return the words back to you. So it's very important that you even are intentional with the type of people that you're doing that with, um, and don't disregard everybody because you don't know, and that's something that I had to come to the conclusion of, and it came at the right time because I honestly don't think anyone who I have um, checked off my list are people who would even be able to fall into those categories for me. Um, but there are people now that I could say, you know what, maybe this person's maybe this person doesn't role is not an active role. Um, however, they are positioned and willing, they are willing to help me when I need that help, when I need like advice on something that is beyond me, that I don't know how to deal with. And I think even like with my clients, some of them I've been able to kind of bounce things off of,
You
depending
never
on
know
what
where
it
the
is that
teacher
they
will
do.
appear.
You don't know. I've been able to help a doctor reorganize her place, and I was able to have these really great conversations with her about the medical field and how I feel about it. And she gave me that space to be honest about it, where some doctors might be like, the audacity of you to, come at me this way. But she really created a safe place for me to have my authentic feelings towards some of the things that I feel that community is doing. Um, I've had, a lot of business owners. It's just been great. Like I've even been able to help a coach. She's a health and wellness coach, but she was able to give me the foundation of, of or help me understand the foundation of coaching, and has really presented me with the okay to think differently and outside of the box. So, you know, keep your eyes open. Not everybody is meant to stay. Not everybody is meant to go, and not everybody is going to be active. Some people serve a more passive um, role in your life.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to just being more childlike. If you're like a child, you'll learn from anything and everybody.
Yeah,
If you're
yeah,
just open to receive whatever it is that is being taught in that moment, doesn't mean they're a lifetime teacher. It doesn't mean they're, but if you allow yourself to constantly just reopen up, just not, and just and if you, as my mentor, my late, and I'm gonna stop there. So you meet things in life, and sometimes you might put it on and you might wear it, and sometimes you might leave it right there. And that's, if you're open, you'll have plenty of things to put on and plenty of things to leave right where they're at.
right, right. So I hope this has helped you. Libby, please let us know where we can find you on all the social media platforms.
All right. Well, you guys can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all under Libby Baeeloo. And that is exactly as it is on the video, Libby Baeeloo. And if you are down for some new music, you can also stream me under that name as well. And that would be first name, last name. And I just want to say thank you for having me on. This has been a pleasure. This is what we do all day, every day. And now to be able
This
to
is what we do all day, every day, because growth is important to me and growth is important to you. So that's
God
just
gave us each other to grow with, and I'm
I
very
just
thankful.
I keep telling them, like, I'll be really surrounding myself with people who don't have depth in their life. Like, if you out here with the superficial attitude and you won't get that money, you won't get that bag, you won't go on vacations, and life is just, it's like, that's cool. I love to get money too, like, and I love vacations as well. But I think it is the weight that we put on certain things um just don't really correspond with where my mind is.
And I'm so
um
proud of you. Congratulations. And this is so inspiring. So I'm just happy to be a part of it.
thank you so much.
It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.
Bye, love.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed my talk with Libby. I hope you got some gems from that. um it is the last episode and I am beyond, honestly. I hope you guys enjoyed all of my guests. Shout out to Kahawia. Shout out to Leroy and Anthony and Tiffany for blessing me with their time. I am so, so very, very grateful because you certainly did not have to um, show up and talk with me, but I'm glad that you did. Um, Man, can we just kind of chop it up for 2 more minutes? If I can allow myself to talk for 2 more minutes, maybe 5 more minutes. Um, but what a journey. Um, there was a lot of changing up from the first month um, where I was doing it every weekend to doing it bi-weekly. And because this is a platform about growing, um, I'm glad that I was able to be flexible with myself because I can be a little bit harsher and beat myself up for not keeping the weekly schedule. But it's about learning the pace that you need to go in. Um, it's about giving yourself grace. Loving on yourself is about having healthy conversations, as we spoke of today, and living life authentically to what feels comfortable for you. Don't allow anyone to make you feel bad for situations where you uh, felt as though you had to change your mind and change your decision. Um, I think the only people that we need to consider when dealing with transitions in life or different decisions in specific um, momentary situations is a marriage. To be quite honest, you don't owe anything to your parents but respect. You don't owe anything to your children but love. You don't owe nothing to your friends but friendship. You know, your spouse, and I could be wrong, but your spouse is the only one that you should be having a full conversation with when you're deciding to make a different decision or a transition or whatever the case may be. They're the only people that you should be talking to in these type of full intentional ways. Now, sure, you might there might be situations and scenarios where you may have to talk to a friend about something. You may, because a simple case would be, oh, I'm planning to go on a trip. I invited my friend. I can't go on the trip no more. I've decided I don't want to go on the trip no more, so I'm not going to tell them. I'm not going to just not tell them. I have to have that conversation. So obviously, in those situations of common sense, I'm not talking about those scenarios. I'm talking about like true, like this is a long life type of thing. Your spouse is the only one who should be a soundboard for you, and accountability for you, to where you're able to make decisions that will be more benefiting to both parties, because you guys are one. Um, so like I said, I hope that this was helpful for you. I hope that you gleaned something from this season, honey. I don't know. I hope that you did. Um, this was exciting. I cannot believe it is May already. Um, I do want to touch on the fact that I told you I was gonna wear my new hat that I absolutely love. Don't you just love it? I got it from afrosofly.com, which is Kahawia's store for her good. This is for her goodies. This is also from her, Afro Sofa. I love the shirt. I'm not sure if she has it um, in the store yet, the merch store. But I love this shirt. I love it, honey. This shirt is cute. Um, so thank you so much to all of you for tuning in. I want you all to have an amazing summer. And second season, as I stated, is going to deal with my relationships. I wanna be a little bit more focused this time around, right? Because the goal is to be better each time. And so even though this season was truly my baby steps, and it was like kind of figuring things out, next season I want to be a bit more intentional about what I talk about, and it's just piggyback riding on all the things that was stated throughout this entire season. It was an easy decision to choose to talk about my past relationships. Um, um, Whew, that is going to be interesting. I don't know. Again, I come here with an open spirit, hoping that, um, knowing, not hoping, but knowing that the Holy Spirit is going to guide my words. And so I'm just really interested to see what the Father has in store, what it is that's going to be coming out of my mouth with each relationship that I was in. I believe that I'm going to keep the same schedule. Um, it's a schedule that has really worked for me. And so I do plan to do two a month, which is bi-weekly. Um, and maybe that season I will have better equipment and be more open to editing a little bit more. Guys, thank you for being part of the first season of the Revelations of a Ranting Sheep. Um, Hopefully better things are to come very soon. Take care. I love you guys, and be better. Let your soul grow, honey. Grow, grow, grow. Love, love, love. Not just others, but yourself. Have a good one.